everyone, Happy New Year. I am back from my Booktube break. I have been on holiday, I've had Christmas, I am feeling a bit jet lagged. So I don't really know what day of the week it is, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I am here with a staple on my channel, which is my new book releases video. I try to do these videos every single month. I talk to you about my most anticipated releases that are coming up for that month. Obviously, it's already mid-January, so we have had a few days of new releases so far, but I set one of my goals this year to not miss a month of new releases. And so here I am, straight back from holiday. I literally landed in the UK yesterday morning, and as I said, I don't really know what's going on, but I do know that I have around 40 new releases to talk to you about today. These are ones I am mainly interested in for one reason or another. Let's just start talking about them. The first book, which is already out now, is A Language of Dragons. This one is a YA fantasy debut. It's dark academia and it's said to be great for fans of Babel and Fourth Wing and also the Scholomance trilogy. I'm a fan of Fourth Wing, it's alright, but I've not read the other books yet in this comp list. But this does sound like something that I would enjoy, and so I do actually have a copy from NetGalley, but I haven't read it yet. So it's historical fiction set in our world. It's set in London in 1923. And dragons are just a normal thing in this world. I'm not entirely sure if they're like good dragons or bad dragons or a mixture of both, but the main character is called Vivian, and she is trying to get an internship in order to study dragon languages. And then just casually in the synopsis it says that she starts a civil war. It's also partly set in Bletchley Park, which is a place near me, a real life place that was very relevant during World War II for the women's code breaking. And so the main character in this book is actually recruited as a code breaker. I guess this is kind of related to her dragon languages thing, and I guess she has to figure out some codes and save her family. I love the sound of this one. I'm really looking forward to reading it at some point soon. Also already released, we have No Place Left to Hide. This is by Megan Lally, who wrote That's Not My Name. I've not read that book, but I have been quite interested in it, and this is another YA thriller by her. This is about a main character called Brooke, who is trying to strive to be perfect, basically. She wants to get into her dream university, and for that everything has to be flawless. One day on the way back from a party, a truck or a lorry starts tailing Brooke and her friends on an isolated road, which is creepy in itself, but also Brooke starts getting threatened by someone who says that they know about the incident. And I don't know what the incident is, but I can imagine that someone in her class died or something and Brooke was sort of involved, or she saw what happened. That's just a guess from this synopsis, it could be entirely different. I'd really like to give Megan Lally's books a go. I think I'll probably start with her debut, but I also am interested in this one. The Lotus Shoes, this one is historical fiction, and I love myself some historical fiction every now and again. This is about two women in China in the 1800s. One of the women, called Little Flower, is sold to a very wealthy family, and she becomes a handmaiden to a girl called Lin Jing. The two of them are obviously starkly different, but they do start to develop a bond and I guess become sort of friends, as much as you can be friends with your handmaiden or vice versa. So they sort of grow up together, being sort of rivals but also friends. And then a scandal strikes this wealthy family. Both of their lives are thrown into chaos. I love the sound of this one. I love a good historical book, especially ones not set in the UK. So I'd really like to read this one at some point this year, I think. The Last Bookstore on Earth. This one is a YA sci-fi dystopia book. It's about two teen girls who fall in love in a bookstore. And I think in this dystopian world, it's like climate fiction, so there are cataclysmic storms that hit every so often. The first one kind of ended the world, and now another one is about to hit. I like the sound of this one. I'm gonna give it a go at some point, I think. Breath of the Dragon by Shannon and Fonda Lee. I don't know who Shannon Lee is in relation to Fonda, maybe her daughter or sister or something. But this is a YA fantasy debut from the two of them, and it's obviously about dragons. It says here that 16-year-old June dreams of proving his worth as a warrior in the Elite Guardians tournament, held every 6 years to entrust the magical scroll of Earth to a new protector. Eager to prove his skills, June hopes that a win will restore his father's honour, righting a horrible mistake that caused their banishment from his home, mother and twin brother. But June is forbidden from participating because June is not blessed with any special powers like his twin was, and so the main character stows away and is basically determined to be the next guardian and to help his family. I really like the sound of this one. I think I'm gonna wait for a few more reviews because I've read a book by Fonda Lee before and I just thought it was okay. I know that's kind of scandalous. I do want to see how she does co-writing a book but also writing YA, so I'm gonna hold off on buying this one, but it's definitely high up on my radar. Immortal by Sulin Tan. This is a standalone book by this author. It's YA fantasy romantasy, maybe. The synopsis mentions dangerous secrets, forbidden magic, and passion. A young ruler fights to protect her kingdom. It says here that Li Yan is the heir and she knows that she must ascend the throne and renew her kingdom's pledge to serve the immortals, who once protected them from a vicious enemy. But then she is poisoned, and so her grandmother has to steal an enchanted lotus in order to save her granddaughter's life. I might have just said grandmother, but I meant grandfather. It's the jet lag. It says the immortal queen commands the powerful god of war to attack the kingdom, and so the grandfather dies and Li Yan ascends the throne and basically inherits a load of chaos, which I think sounds really, really good. So I do want to read this one. I've not read this author's other book, which is Daughter of the Moon Goddess, but I do have it on my shelf, so I'll probably try to read that one first and then get my hands on this one, but this one does sound really good. Temple of Swoon. This one is a romance book. It's about an archaeologist called Dr. Miriam Jacobs, who is going on an expedition into the Amazon rainforest, and she is joined by a journalist called Raphael, and I think they're probably going to annoy each other and then get together because it's a romance book. I read another book by this author, Raiders of the Lost Hearts, and I gave it 3 stars. I did like it, but it wasn't anything amazing, I didn't think, but I'm really picky about my romance books, and I basically just really like the titles of the books in this. I guess it's a series, I don't know if it is or not. They've got very similar titles anyway. So I've put this on the list because I might pick it up if I find it for cheap, and I'm kind of in the mood for like a very light contemporary romance book. A Sea of Unspoken Things. This is by Adrienne Young. I don't think I've ever read anything by this author. I keep getting her confused with Ava Reid, and so I should probably read books by both of them so that I can tell them apart. This one is a mystery thriller, and the tags on Goodreads also mention that it's magical realism as well. I don't know if that's just because her other books are magical realism and this one is or not. Who knows? Probably people who have read the book. It says here that it's about a woman who is investigating her brother's mysterious death, and she's also coming to terms with her own haunting past. Maybe it's literally haunting. It says here that the only thing that the 2 siblings ever had was each other. She has a deep connection with her twin brother Johnny. She can feel what he feels. I guess that's what the magical realism stuff is coming in. And then Johnny is killed in a tragic accident, and so James knows this before her phone even rings, and so she goes to the rural town of Hawthorne, California to settle her brother's affairs, and then she starts looking into her brother's death. I love the sound of this one. It's a really short book as well, so I could pick this one up in February maybe. The Starlight Air. This is one that I've actually pre-ordered because I found it going for quite cheap. This is a romantasy book, and I just love the cover of this one. That's the main reason I put this on the list. I have no idea what it's about, actually. I just pre-ordered it for the cover alone, and that's okay. Let me see. It says that Soraya, the main character, receives an invitation from the court. She thinks it's a joke, but nobles need her as a bladesmith, even though she has no qualifications. And then she meets the Crown Prince's illegitimate half-brother, who is impossibly handsome, and he captures her interest and her ire. So it seems like the court are trying to find something called the Star Keeper, a girl rumoured to hold the magic of the stars in her blood, and that is probably the main character. But I don't mind if this is predictable if it's a fun fantasy romance. So this one is on the list. I'm going to be reading it soonish, probably. I think it's reaching me next week. There's some sort of delay with it, with the shipping or something, I don't really know, but I would really like to read this for the cover. All the Water in the World. This one is a sci-fi dystopian book. It's also partly literary thriller. It says that it's set on the roof of New York's Museum of Natural History. It's told in the voice of a girl gifted with deep feeling for water. In the years after the glaciers melt, Noni, her older sister, and her parents and their researcher friends have stayed behind in an almost deserted New York City, and they've created a settlement on the roof of the museum. So I guess they're kind of looking after this museum because they're researchers and they really care about preserving the history. And then there's a superstorm and it breaches the city's flood walls, and so a family must escape north on the Hudson. They carry with them a book that holds their records of the lost collections. They race up the river, and I guess it's about their story heading north. It says that it's inspired by the stories of the curators in Iraq who worked to protect their collections from war. So I really love the sound of this one. It doesn't have the highest average rating, but also not many people have read it, so any lower rating is going to have a massive effect on the average. I'd really like to give this one a go, and I think this is on my most anticipated of the year, so I'm going to see if I can get my hands on it soon. I don't know if it's being published in the UK. It doesn't look like it, so I would have to order this on eBay maybe from the US. Mother of Rome. This one is one that I've got from NetGalley. It's a retelling of the mother of Romulus and Remus, who founded Rome, and it's about the woman who made all of that possible. I don't know how she's going to feature in the story or what her story is going to be, but as I said, I have this one on NetGalley, and I am really into mythology retellings and also the history of Rome itself, like IRL history. So I'd be very interested to see how this kind of weaves in mythology and history together. I think it sounds really interesting. Of Mountains and Seas. This one is a fantasy book, I think. It says that the main character Davis was born without magic in a shapeshifter family, and he's trying to get his father's approval. No one probably likes him because he doesn't have magical powers. And he meets a girl called Iris. Is this YA? It doesn't say, but it's mentioning a girl rather than a woman. Anyway, Iris has a mysterious illness, and so her ambitions are hindered. And they end up going to Uras, which is one of California's smallest towns, and they discover a cave of magic transferring stones. Not really sure what happens after that, but it sounds very intriguing. And it mentions an illustrator, so I wonder if it's partly illustrated as well. They don't normally do that just for a book cover. The last room on the left, this one is a mystery thriller / horror book. It's about the caretaker in an isolated mountain hotel who has to fight for her life and her sanity. I don't normally read the synopsis for thrillers, so let's leave that one there. The Favourites, and I hadn't actually had this one on my radar, and then I started seeing it pop up in a few different videos, and I think some people got it from Book of the Month. And this is actually about figure skaters and their epic love story. And if anyone has seen that viral video between the male and female figure skaters who are apparently best friends but have so much chemistry on the ice, that's the reason I put this one on the list. I love the sound of this one, and it's kind of giving Taylor Jenkins Reid vibes, so this one is very, very high on my list. I think previously this author wrote some thriller books, so I'm very interested to see what she has done here with this more contemporary romance book. Witchcraft for Waywood Girls by Grady Hendrix. This one is about a bunch of girls who are living in, I think, like a girls' home or something. I think they're sent there against their will, and they are all, or some of them, are witches. I'm not really sure. I've read a few books by this author before and I've enjoyed them, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. I might save it for autumn though, when I go read a bunch of witchy books again. We will see. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this one, so that's why it's on the list. Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I've read a couple of books by her before in the past as well, and I have enjoyed them. I know she's quite a divisive author, but this is a mystery thriller, and again, I don't read mystery thriller synopses in case they spoil them, but I know that this is about an author called Grady Green who is having the best day of his life. And that's all I know. The Lost House. This is another mystery thriller horror kind of book. It's set in Iceland. The main character is returning to her ancestral home to investigate a gruesome murder that happened in the family. I've been to Iceland before and I absolutely loved the country. I would love to go back there sometime soon, and so I want to read a bunch of books set in Iceland. Icelandic authors tend to do really good crime books, and so I'm hoping this is going to be kind of like crime adjacent but more of a thriller mystery horror book, and I'm hoping it's going to be a good one. Lightful, which is a fantasy book about vampires. In this world, vampires have kind of roamed freely, at least until most of them were wiped out by the Greys. I don't know if the Greys are like a family or something, and so the vampires have fled and made their own city, which is the only place that they are safe. In the city, of course, there is a hierarchy. If you're a noble vampire, then you get really good blood, and if you're a poor vampire, then you get to drink weak blood because you can't afford anything better. And so the main character is a maid at the palace. When the son of the city's ruler is murdered, she starts to investigate and try to find out what's going on so that she can then improve her status. This is a debut book, I believe, so no idea what it's going to be like, but I would really like to read it. The Between Bookstore. This one is a time travel-y fantasy book about a magical bookstore. It says that the bookstore itself transports a trans man through time and brings him face to face with his teenage self, and it's kind of about new beginnings and identity and stuff. This one sounds good as well. Honeysuckle and Bone. This one is YA gothic horror. It's set in Jamaica on an extravagant estate, and the main character is a teen girl who becomes a nanny for this rich family, and then I think the estate is haunted. And this sounds fairly similar to a book that I read recently, This Cursed House, which is about a woman who does become a nanny in the south to a very, very rich family, and then there are creepy and horrific goings on there. I really enjoyed that book, so I think I enjoy this kind of thing, so I'm going to give this one a read. Daughter of Chaos. This is another one where I really love the cover. This is a Greek mythology retelling. It's set on the island of Naxos, and it's about prophecy and a fisherman's daughter. The main character joins up with Heracles and his crew and basically just goes on an adventure. It is tagged as Romantasy, so I'd be interested to see how that plays out, and I'd just really like to read this book, so that's why it's on the list. Boudica. This one is another Romantasy book about the British warrior queen. I have read books by PC Cast before and I didn't love them. I'm not sure many people did, so I'm a bit hesitant to read this one, especially because it's a romantasy based on a real person. I don't really know how I feel about that, but also like Boudica was I don't think she'd care if someone wrote a book about her 2,000 years later or however long it's been. So it's obviously set in Roman occupied Britain and follows this queen who goes around causing trouble for the Romans. I'd really like to read it to give it a go, but I'm a bit hesitant, so I might wait for some reviews. It's got a 3.76 rating on Goodreads so far, so not the worst, but we will see. And then on the 21st of January, obviously we have Onx Storm coming out. This is the sequel to Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. It's the third book in the series. No idea where this one's going to go, to be honest. I haven't really made any predictions because I just don't know. I'm going to read it straight away, basically do a review and a recap of it, of course, so you can all look forward to that. Mask of the Deer Woman, I love the cover for this one as well. It's about a main character who is a tribal marshal and she has to investigate the disappearance or the abduction of a missing young woman. Her name is Carrie and her daughter has previously been murdered, and she has to return to the reservation that she grew up in and investigate a disappearance. So I'm very intrigued by this one. Again, it's a mystery thriller, so I won't read the whole synopsis, but I'd like to give it a go. Moth Eater. This one is a horror book. I think it might have some fantasy elements as well, so it's probably like towing the line. It's set in Appalachia in Virginia, and it says it's about the last witch of the Ridge who must choose sides in a clash between industry and nature. The main character is called Benny, and she sacrifices her job after her best friend dies in a coal mine, and there's something weird killing the miners in the mountain. So this one sounds really intriguing to me. I would love to read this one very soon. I'm going to see if I can get it from the library. If not, I'll order it probably and give it a go. The Scorpion Queen. This one is YA fantasy. It says here that it's inspired by a Malayan fairy tale about a princess whose suitors are challenged to gruesome trials. It's set in a palace in Timbuktu, and the main character is called Amy, who is suffering from a devastating loss. She was the daughter of a prosperous salt merchant, and then something horrible happens and she finds herself disinherited, and she is forced to serve the Princess of Mali. I'm not going to read the rest of the synopsis, but I'm very intrigued by this one because I've never read anything with this setting before. I've never heard of this fairy tale, so I'd like to give it a go. And then we have a ton of books releasing on the 28th of January. I think they were probably avoiding the week of Onx Storm's release. The first one is a contemporary romance book. It's called Out of the Woods. This one is about two high school sweethearts who have been together for 17 years, and the main character, Sarah, she wants to see kind of who she is without her partner, and then I think something happens and they start to wonder whether they should still be together or whether getting married at 19 was a mistake or whether they've grown apart. So I like the sound of this one. It's a little bit more interesting than your typical romance book to me. I'm Not Jessica Chen. This one is a YA contemporary book. It says here that the main character has been rejected from all of her Ivy League college applications, and so her parents aren't very happy with her, and so she makes the wish that she wants to be smarter and more successful than her cousin who is going to Harvard, and then her wish comes true and I think they swap bodies, and I love a bit of body swapping, so I'm looking forward to reading this one at some point. Our Winter Monster. This one is a horror book. It says that it's perfect for fans of Paul Tremblay and Sarah Gran. I don't know who Sarah Gran is. It says here that it's a holiday horror about an unhappy couple running from their problems and straight into the maw of a terrifying beast. It says it's set in the snow around Halloween, maybe? So this might be a good one to read in the autumn or when it's cold here. It's cold here at the moment, it's like -5, but it's not snowing or anything. So I might wait for some snow before I read this. I've just realised the cover, is that like a haunted snowman or something? I don't really know what's going on there, but it does look creepy. Good Dirt. This one is historical fiction. This is by the author of Black Cake, which I've not read, but I would really like to read. And it says here that the main character's brother was shot and killed, and this crime was never solved. And because the family were quite well off, the case didn't just sort of like disappear. It was always hanging over the main character, and she was always constantly being reminded of it. And so to get away from it all, the main character goes to France, and then she starts looking into, I think, her family history, and it mentions multiple generations, or specifically it being a multi-generational epic, and I love the sound of that, so I'd love to read this one sometime soon as well. Might actually see if that one's on NetGalley. The Outcast Mage. This is a fantasy book with dragons for fans of Andrea Stewart, James Islington and Samantha Shannon. It says it's set in a glass city where magic is everything. The main character is a student at the legendary academy, and she needs to prove that she can control her magic. If she fails, she will be exiled. I guess it's not good to not control your magic here. And then because the title is The Outcast Mage, I don't know if she like ever controls her magic or if something goes horribly wrong. It says that there's a tragic incident at the academy and she is saved by a powerful living mage. And then it says something about the kingdom's elite and stuff, so I think she maybe has to like infiltrate the elite and, I don't know, do something. At the Fountain of Creation. I wanted to mention this one because it's a sequel and I've not read the first book yet, but I love these covers, so I just wanted to give this one a shout out. It's a short novella, and the first one is a novella as well, and I would like to read this series at some point. It mentions something about like god killers and things, and it's inspired by Yoruba mythology. Iron and Embers. This one is a fantasy romance book. It says that it's about a woman called Ren who is an alchemist turned assassin, and she is seeking vengeance for the death of her friends. I think it sounds quite generic, to be honest, for a romantasy synopsis, but I kind of want to read it, and it's got a really high average rating. And again, not many people have rated it so far, only 168 people by the time of recording this, but because the rating is so high, I do want to give this a go and see what the hype is all about. Old Soul. This is a mystery thriller about a woman who never ages, can't go by the same name, and she can't stay in the same place for too long. It says here that two strangers are grieving and they meet at an airport and they discover that their family members died on the same day, just 6,000 miles apart, and so they sort of start to bond over that. There might be a bit of a horror element in here as well, so this sounds very intriguing. Written in the Waters. This is a non-fiction book. It's a memoir by a National Geographic scuba diver, and it says here that they recount one woman's epic journey to trace the global slave trade across the Atlantic Ocean and find her place in the world. Love a good memoir, and I'm really interested in scuba diving as well, so I'd like to give this one a go, maybe by audiobook. And then finally, the last one I have on this list for January is We Rip the World Apart. This one is historical fiction set in Canada, and I think, did I mention this one in my most anticipated of the year video? Maybe. It says here that 24-year-old Karila discovers that she's pregnant with a child she isn't sure she wants. She is mixed race, half black and half white, but she doesn't feel like either. It says here that her mother, Evelyn, fled to Canada with her husband and their firstborn child during the politically charged Jamaican exodus in the 1980s, and so it follows multiple generations and multiple timelines, and I absolutely love that, so I'm looking forward to reading this one as well. I might see if this one's on NetGalley too, otherwise I'm going to order it. So those are the 40-ish books that I'm looking forward to that are releasing or have already released in January. Let me know which books are on your radar. If there are any that I haven't mentioned, then please tell me in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye.